Hey, good afternoon. It's Rob McClendon back here talking a little bit about sports today. We're going to get away a little bit from the horse racing stuff, and there's going to be two different ones today that come up. One's a bit of a hockey talk, talking a little bit of Olympic preview, kind of getting that it's kind of close, 2 months away now. You also get the World Juniors coming up, so that's going to start the whole Team Canada roll. And for those of you south of the border, the Team USA roll. Then we're going to talk in the other podcast about college football bowl games, and we're going to go through kind of the games and what I like and what I don't like. And after having a pretty good weekend on the NFL with the 4-on-1 week, kind of feeling a bit of a roll coming up. Just a quick note at Turf Paradise. It's been kind of a quiet week. Minotaur did win at $36. That shocked me. He ran a whole lot better. Flexi Plus is in this weekend, coming up. Other than that, it's all pretty easy to find the information on Equibase if you're an ASD fan looking for that. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the Olympics. The pools are out. The four pools, three pools of 4 teams each. The Russians is the host with the number 1 seed. They're going to play in a pool with Slovakia, the Americans. Russia's a deep team up front. They're not that great in the back end, it looks like. Ovi, Malkin, Datsuk, Kovalchuk. Then that KHL group, Radulov, Kuznetsov, Tikhonov. So you get that kind of Russian factor there. On the back end, you get Varlamov at net, probably with Bobrovsky probably as his backup. So on the back end, you can hurt them, but they can definitely outscore you. So 7-5 is definitely always a possibility with the Russians. The 2 seed is the Finns. You get Tuukka Rask in net with Niemi backing him up. If he was healthy, you'd have Pekka Rinne in that mix too, but I don't know how long he's going to be out for. And the Finnish forwards and defensemen are kind of a group of players that are all pretty similar. You get Jussi Jokinen, Olli Jokinen, Michael Granlund, Tomo Ruutu. There's lots of guys that are good, solid role players, and this team always seems to come together. They play in a group with, I believe it is Canada and Norway. So that's kind of the makings of Group B. So Finland-Canada should be an interesting game kind of early in the first round, just to see how they match up with everybody. The 3 seed is the Czechs. They play with the Swedes as their kind of main opponent out in the group on the C group. The Czechs, again, it's Vokun and Pavlik. I know Jets fans are lamenting how awful Pavlik has been out of the late. I don't think Vokun's been that much better, so maybe that's a bit of an issue. On the back end, you got Thomas Kaberle and guys like that. And up front, you got some old stars and some new guys. You got kind of Patrick Elias and Martin Erat and Jaromir Jagr and all these Czech stalwarts of the 98 Nagano team still. And then you get David Krejci and guys like that who are talented younger guys who are going to add to that team and make them a bit of a contender, I would think. The 4th ranked team is the Swedes, and they're the team that are really scary. This team is absolutely loaded for bear. The 2 Sedins, Louis Eriksson, Zetterberg, Landeskog, Steen, Backstrom, Alfie, just up front. And that's a lot of scoring right there. Then you get Carlson on the back end. He's always going to be able to score. You got Cromwell and guys like that to play kind of 2 ways. You get Henrik Lundqvist in net if he ever gets hot. The Swedish team can be really tough to beat. The 5th seed is the Canadians. We'll talk about their roster in full in a minute. The 7th seed is the Americans. We'll talk about them in a minute. But the 6th seeded Slovakian team that's in there with Russia. You got the 2 hosts. You got Michael Handzus. You got Marian Gaborik. Other than that, they're pretty another bunch of European players. On the back end, you obviously have Chara, the human animal that he is, Andre Mazaros, and then Yaroslav Halak's going to play every minute in net for them. And they were a team that almost beat Canada last year in the not last year, but in 2010 in the semis. So this is a team that could be a bit of a threat. Definitely think that those guys kind of carry that team, though. So now we're going to kind of get into the 2 teams that are going to be the topic of a lot of conversation. We'll start with the American roster, and this is kind of just my projections for the roster. 14 forwards, 8 defensemen, 3 goaltenders. I kind of broke them down just in line combinations on forward. On the back end, I didn't just because I'm not 100% sold on what I want to do everywhere. In goal, I have Quick if he's healthy. If not, I think you take Jimmy Howard. You're also going to have Craig Anderson in that mix if those both are kind of injured, because I know Howard's been fighting some lower body stuff too. You get Ryan Miller's got to go. He was the gold medal or the silver medal winning goalie last time. Even though he's on a bad Buffalo team, his stats really aren't that bad for as bad as Buffalo is. And I think Ben Bishop deserves a chance to go as your second or third goalie. He's got great numbers. He's had a really good comeback season in Tampa. So I think Ben Bishop is another guy who's kept them in that in a tough kind of road here with Stamkos being out. On the back end, I think you got to take Kevin Shattenkirk of the Blues, Erik Johnson, Cam Fowler of the Ducks, who's really turned into a nice two-way defenseman, John Carlson, who's an absolute horse for the Capitals. Look at the shot solo for him. Ryan Suter is the number one defenseman from the Wild. Keith Yandle's another two-way offensive defenseman. Ryan McDonough is another kind of a defensive defenseman that's going to be a real solid guy. Then I think you take Dustin Byfuglien as your eighth guy over Jack Johnson or Seth Jones. I think Byfuglien gives you some options. He's just such a big horse, and he put some talent around him, which he does not have with the Jets. And he could go back to some of his Chicago production. You can put him on the power play. You can kind of let him skate around, even though he's a big guy. It doesn't hurt to have that physicality there, and he doesn't have to take such a leading role like he does in Winnipeg. On the front end, I have the first line being Kessel with Kane and Parise. I think you got to keep some sort of ability to really score with the first line here. So I think you're going to get Kessel. You're going to get Kane, obviously, has been red hot. He's second in the league in points. And Parise, who's had a little bit of a struggle, but he is definitely a producer. Parise and Kane played together in Vancouver. Second line, I have Joe Pavelski centering Bobby Ryan from Ottawa and Kyle Okposo. I didn't really know where else to put Okposo, and that kind of became an issue. So I kind of ended up sticking him here. I was kind of between him and Dustin Brown on that second spot on the left wing. The third line, I think, is another kind of a younger line that's going to be a high-energy line. You got David Backes in the middle, a guy that's really been underrated and has a lot of talent. With TJ Oshie, a dynamic scorer on the right side, and Brandon Saad from the Hawks on the left side. With that, I think you get a really young, energetic line that's going to be kind of the future of the American team, along with obviously P. Kane and Stasny and a couple of other guys. But those guys, I think, are really an energy line and would be a good fit together. And then that leaves kind of a grinding line. You got Ryan Callahan, the captain of the Rangers. You get the captain of the Kings with Dustin Brown. I think that's a very good room, guys. And then you get Kessler in the middle, kind of just to be an absolute nuisance. These are a couple of your penalty killers, too, I think. That leaves you with and that's another kind of a checking line that can kind of shut down maybe a Crosby line or a Stamkos line or whatever you want to talk about. And then just as my 13th and 14th forwards, I wanted Paul Stasny because I think he's pretty flexible. And then you get a kind of a grinding winger in Max Pacioretty, just as somebody that can kind of play both sides of the game. So that leaves your American roster there. It's kind of an interesting thing that the national GM's picking it. Maybe Seth Jones ends up on the back end somewhere. But this is a team that's pretty stacked on the outsides. I think they got a good, solid back end. They're a little weak down the middle, but I think Kessel and Backes and Kessler are good enough to kind of put up, as much as I kind of hate Kessler, being an absolute Canucks hater. But now going over to the Canadian roster, again, 14 forwards, 8 defensemen, 3 goaltenders. The 1 and 2 goalies, I think, are very interchangeable. You got Price and Luongo. I think they're the 1-2. I'd probably start Luongo. Price is good, but you know what? He hasn't had that Olympic experience. He's got the World Juniors a little bit, but Luongo has just been so impressive. Was such an impressive part of that Vancouver team. The other thing is you got on the back end, you've got kind of a very interesting third goalie situation where you got Crawford, who's injured right now, but he's the Stanley Cup winner, who was one of the 5 roster invitees for camp. And I think he's got okay numbers, and it's nice to have a guy that's been there and done it in the Stanley Cup. You're also going to get Mike Smith, Braden Holtby, Josh Harding, all kind of guys I think are on the outside looking in, and Marc-Andre Fleury, who's got all the talent in the world, just seems to have some issues every once in a while. But he has won a cup too, so Fleury wouldn't be a horrible choice in my mind either. On the back end, I really believe in keeping guys together. I think you got to go for what's really talented. Obviously, your number 1 pair are Weber and Doughty. Weber, the big man from Nashville, he's got the big shot. You get Doughty, the offensive defenseman. That's kind of your 1-2. Then you get the Blackhawks pairing and the Blues pairing, I think. You get Bouwmeester and Pietrangelo. I think Bouwmeester's really deserved it. He's got great numbers this year. He's always been getting better and better. He's just never been on a winning team before. And then you get Pietrangelo, who's one of the up-and-coming young defensive stars in the NHL. Then you get the 2 guys returning from 2010, and Keith and Seabrook from the Blackhawks. Keith, obviously the better skater. He's probably the favorite for the Norris right now. He definitely is in my mind. And Seabrook is a good, solid, steady defenseman. He was the 7th defenseman in Vancouver. I could see him probably filling that role again, kind of being a minutes eater when they have to be. He can play in the PK. He definitely has one of the better 2-on-1 defenses in the league that I think is one of those things that coaches look at a little bit more than you or me talk about. And then my 7th and 8th defensemen, I have Subban, kind of as an offensive guy. I think you have to take him. It's just kind of a... there's not too many other guys you have to talk about. I took him over Letang because I think he's been better than Letang this year. And you don't really need to go Letang over Bouwmeester or Seabrook because then you're getting way too offensive. And I think you need guys that can sit there and play the PK and stop a lot of things. And that leaves my 8th guy is enough, actually. I couldn't really go to anybody else. And, he's a big physical presence. He's had success on the international level. He's going to be a good guy to have. He plays against the top guys in Toronto. You know what? As much as a lot of people outside Toronto like to hate Phaneuf, he's a good hockey player, and I think he's going to be a useful part, just as the 7th or 8th guy again. Up front, here are my line combinations. I have Crosby centering the first line with Kunitz and Tavares. I had to move Tavares, obviously, off the center because the center line is absolutely loaded for Team Canada. And I can keep Kunitz and Crosby together just to have that dynamic scoring, that unity they have in Pittsburgh. I think Kunitz makes this team kind of as one of the last guys. My second line I put together, I assume Stamkos is going to be back from the way I'm hearing that he's skating and he's getting better and he's getting better. So I put Stamkos in for now. He's back in on my thing. So Stamkos, and you're put St. Louis with him on the right side, and then I put Patrick Sharp on the left side. As one of the NHL.com reporters pointed out, Sharp's been very much a point producer. He's having one of his better years statistically. He can kill the penalties, he can play power play, he can run the power play, he can do all sorts of different things, and he's used to kind of playing with a lot of talent around him. So you get with Stamkos and St. Louis, and I think that could be a nice line. Kind of your grind line, I think, ends up being, again, like it was in 2010, a line centered by Jonathan Toews with Patrice Bergeron, and I put Rick Nash there. I couldn't really, it was kind of Rick Nash or Mike Richards for that spot, and I ended up putting Richards on the outside of the team. So Rick Nash, I guess, is another big body presence, but Toews, obviously, been a great international player. Bergeron's just an absolute grinder. I think Toews and Bergeron are the two main penalty killers as well. Your 4th line is definitely not a 4th line by any means. I put Joe Thornton on the line, thinking that he can provide a lot of leadership, a lot of size, a lot of skill, and kind of set some guys up, playing with Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf, keeping the Anaheim Ducks together. This is more of a 3rd line anything than but you get Perry, who's got the absolute dynamic scoring ability, Getzlaf, who plays with them. And I think you get Thornton kind of setting them up and Mr. Assist Man, and that kind of works as a line that says, here, you know what, guys, go score. Like, this is just kind of like those guys, that's what they do. So then my 13th and 14th forwards, I wanted Giroux because I think he's got lots of talent, as much as he has had a bad year. And then my other guy was Eric Staal, because I think Stahl's another guy that's power play, penalty kill, up the middle, on the wing. He's kind of a versatile guy in case you do get that injury that you need to worry about. Obviously, on the outside looking in, you've got guys like James Neal, Mike Richards, as I mentioned, guys that are just kind of on the edge, I thought, of making this team. Andrew Ladd would have made that list too. I definitely consider Ladd way more than Evander Kane for the Jets fans. But that's kind of my projection for the Olympic rosters and kind of a look forward to it. They're going to announce the rosters, I believe, the 7th or the 9th of January. It's one or the other. I can't remember what day it is. Obviously looking forward to that. And come February, it'll be quite exciting. Before that, though, we do have the December 26th start of the World Juniors, which in Canada is obviously a huge deal. So that should be exciting as well. They always have an okay team. Not quite as familiar with them as I have been in recent years. Obviously, the announcement that Riley and Monahan won't be back is kind of an impact. But we'll be back here. Look for my one on the college football playoff or bowls if you are interested in that as well. But thanks for tuning in on this Wednesday afternoon, and good luck and good racing.